What's up, guys? Welcome to the Wisdom of Coaches podcast, hosted by the Legacy Track Club. Coach Rabo and Coach Falting here as always. Coach Falting got the trophy case behind you today.
Yeah, I think my wife is tired of us filming in the dining room. So today was a nice pivot to my classroom at good old PHS.
There we go. I see you got the Adam Brown plaque behind you or
Yeah, we
something
got
as
a little
well.
tribute to Adam Brown back there. We got a lot of piles of papers back here, and then we've got some state championship medals and some trophies from our first ever border dash that we hosted 12 years ago, and just a hodgepodge of things.
12 years was it? Has it? It's not been 12 years. There's no way.
Yeah, we're I mean, we're rocking and rolling with this thing, man.
Man, I can hardly believe that because I was there for the first one, so that's
So,
crazy.
we're getting old.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of the Border Dash, cross country season is in full swing for you guys. So tell us a little bit more about that and how that's going so far.
Yeah, we're in week 2 here. I know it's different all over the country. We opened in Texas on September 6th, and it was, I think, like Texas is like fourth week of racing, which I can't even fathom racing in the South in early August and stuff. But they've been getting after it. But yeah, so we opened in McKinney, Texas on September 6th with the boys team. We've got four really, really good returning boys on the team that have come off of two teams that were third and fourth in the state the last 2 years. We have arguably one of the top, boy runners in Louisiana. So we took it over to McKinney to race, and I thought we had a pretty good opening. We finished fifth overall. Our top boy broke the school record in the 5K. Got second overall, lost to a guy that was a 4:10 miler and a 9:10 2 miler. So it was exciting to kind of see that we had a guy that could kind of stack up with that. And then we came home this last weekend to open up our season for the girls and host our home meet, the Border Dash. We every year we keep adding people to it. So we had 1,060 registered runners for the race. We ended up almost closing down the major highway that runs into the park because of all the traffic. So that was an interesting dynamic. The sheriff's office has asked us to work on a traffic flow plan for next year. But it was cool. It was a very hot day. Our home course had some wood chips added to them. The wood chips didn't get finished putting in until Friday with the race on Saturday morning, so they ended up being a whole lot more of a challenge than what I thought they were going to be if they'd have gotten finished by August 25th. But for me, like the way we schedule things for our team, like the more challenging, the better. Kind of starting off, the McKinney meet was hilly, and a thunderstorm hit all night long before the race. So it was hilly and muddy. And then in this one, the wood chips still being loose and not tamped down kind of had a mud effect as well. I also put the course slightly long and measured about 3.05 for a Louisiana 3 mile course. And so I like just seeing how people respond to like challenges and things and stuff. And so I think you learn a lot about yourself in the struggle. And these were two meets where we got to learn a lot about ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. 3.05, I mean that's negligible, considering I think a lot of the courses that we've been to have been probably closer to like 2.9 whenever it's all said and done. I know they all get to the state meet, which is a true 3 mile course, and are all typically complaining to the meet organizer that it's a 5K because their times are much slower.
Yeah, I think people don't understand, and it's a big deal that you should understand the craft of your sport. In cross country in high school, a lot of people are just looking for fast times, and there's not a college out there that's looking at cross country times to sign a kid because they don't know what the course length is, what the conditions are, those kind of things. So I think people need to just throw away this idea of like these fast times happening on these cross country courses and focus on like who are you beating and what kind of kid is that on the track. And so because of that, people kind of neglect the idea that when you run a 3 mile course or a 5K course, that distance is supposed to be based on the shortest possible distance an athlete can run. So you're supposed to measure the tangents. I got that. And so when you GPS a 3 mile course, when you're racing it, unless you were the lead runner or the last place runner where nobody could get in your way or push you off of the tangents, your watch should read over 3 miles if you're going to run a 3 mile race, because you can't run the tangents the whole time. We had 300 something boys in the boys race. You're not running the tangents the entire time that you're on there while you're being shoved around by some of these kids and stuff. A 5K should run longer than a 5K, in reality and stuff. And so I think some of these coaches just want to measure right down the middle of the course. And if down the middle it's 3 miles, it's good. And then the moment a kid starts running on the inside of that course, they're running, 2.96, 2.90, and some people are like, well, what's that? What's the difference there? It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a 20-second difference, and those kind of things and stuff. And so, we have run some courses that might have measured 3 miles down the outside of the course in Louisiana. And so those kids just dropped some bombs. And then when you get to the state meet, where if you measure the tangents, it's 3 miles, it's a real eye opener to those kids that were used to running super, super fast, but not actually covering the distance they needed to cover.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of good points there. One is it's incredibly tedious to craft a good cross country course. And this is something you and I have got to have some experience with the Border Dash. And I know you before that hosting district and stuff like that. And just going to other meets and kind of seeing how other coaches did it. And I get it. It's a lot. I mean, you and I, and I know you were probably out there all week whenever you and I were there hosting it together, like, I mean, pretty much the entire week we were going out there and putting stakes in and marking the course and measuring the course and checking up on all these things. And so, I think a lot of times what happens is some of these courses are held at the same place week after week. And so people are going out and dropping a few cones here and there and just going, this is about where the course is. And like you're saying, there's a big difference between 2.9 and 3. And so that's something that, I think people should have a little bit more pride in. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, what's the difference? They're all running the same course. And that is correct to a certain extent. But at the same time, if you're wanting to capture some true 3 mile times and not, I feel like sometimes it's just a race towards the bottom of like, I want to get my kid to have the fastest 3 mile time or my team to have the fastest 3 mile times in the state. And maybe that's a little bit of a psychological thing. Maybe that's an ego thing, but I think a lot of times you're kind of doing a disservice to your runners whenever you're putting them on short courses or specifically building short courses or even if it's just kind of negligence. The other thing I think, and this applies to runners of any type, is your GPS watch is not gospel. And as you mentioned, like your GPS watch should read more, and a lot of these, if you take a look at, there is a margin of error. I think it used to be like 0.05 per mile. So you could go out and run a mile and be anywhere from 0.95 to 1.05, and that be within the margin of error. I'm sure it's tightened up some, but anything from a local 5K to, a marathon, it's very likely that you are not going. And a lot of people, oh, the course is long, the course is long. And it probably wasn't. I'm sure there are a few instances where courses may have run long. I've had a few where courses have run short. But typically speaking, something, especially like a marathon, you're weaving in and out, as you're saying. Like, I am someone who knows about tangents and knows, like, I need to be running the shortest path on the course, but I'm having to move around individuals. I'm having to slide over to a water table and grab some water and then move back. And just these subtle movements here and there, especially over something 26 miles long, is going to easily add zero point 0.1 on to your race, And I mean, if you talk about a 5K, even that, you're easily going to be adding on, 0.02 or zero point zero 0.03 if you're paying attention to it, much less if you're not paying attention to it, which I think a lot of runners are. And so something just to keep in mind, we're about to talk about this. I have Allison's Austin Marathon pulled up here on Strava, and it's 26.36 miles. And I guarantee you, Allison did not have that many people running around her because I watched it and was able to run tangents. And even then, she is, 0.16 mile over the 26.2 of a marathon course. So just something to keep in mind.
I can tell you this: we always do the week before our season opener. We do a 2 mile time trial, on the track. We get the speakers going, playing some music. We have a good time. We get the clock out there. We had a young man who turned on his GPS to run his 2 miles on the track. And so we do it as a 3,200, 8 laps from starting line to finish line, period. You can run lane one the whole time. The young man finished his 2 miles in 10:17 and told me that his watch beeped for 2 miles at 9 minutes and 47 seconds.
Which is really funny because really and truly a 3,200 is not even a 2 mile.
Correct.
You're about 18 meters short or something in that
Correct.
neighborhood. So yes, that is very comical.
So our track, I guess, runs long compared to other tracks. I guess you could finish your 2 mile before you ever finished 8 laps. But yeah, that's exactly right. But the people that live and die by this watch thing, will go to their grave. I was cheated. I had to run such a longer race. And it's like, that's not the reality of it. I mean, even a mile race, like unless you're Cole Hawker just hugging the rail the entire time, you're going to run slightly more than a mile. Like you have to. If you
Yeah.
bounce around somebody, you're going to and stuff. And you don't see this complaint in track as much as you see in, cross country or road races or those things about these course lengths and stuff and the GPS fanatics things. But yeah, it's an eye opener. But to me, I would rather prepare kids for what the state course is like. So we run a lot of 5Ks so that even if the 5K was mismeasured and is slightly less than a 5K, then we're still good to go run a true 3 mile course. I like to make our course a little bit longer, and every year we still have people PR for 3 miles on a course that's purposely set to be a little bit longer early in the year, to challenge people kind of mentally and things like that. So, those of y'all that are just, live and die by this watch. At the end of the day, just stop. Whoever wins the Boston Marathon is not complaining that they ran an extra 0.1 out of their, after their 26.2 miles. They're celebrating the win. Our top runner, Brennan Robin, ran 15:35 on the course, going through all those crazy conditions. It was a dominant performance. He won the meet by over 20 seconds. That kid's ready to run something really fast if we get on a short course or a fast course, or our state meet, for the love of God, it ends with 300 meters on a track. It is a fast course if you let it be, and so he's prepared for that. If he's beating people by 20 seconds on that, longer and running through, loose wood chips and stuff. He can beat people by 20 seconds or something fast and drop a crazy time.
Yeah. So what meets do we have coming up, and how are you prepping your team kind of as you're kind of entering, I guess, middle of the season here over the next few weeks?
Yeah, so we kind of staggered things this year. Our girls team was very new and very young. I think they were a huge surprise this week. They got second in the border dash, and there wasn't a team talking about them. And so it's funny, like I'm announcing the team scores, and I'm like in 10th place, so and so, and as I'm going through these places, I'm like, oh my God, did we not even get in the top 10? Like where are we at? And then I called the name of a team that should have, placed in the top 2, and you could see their eyes get wide and be like, who in the world beat us? And then I look and I'm like, oh my God, Parkway girls second place, like right out the gate, their first race ever, because we had a freshman that was our number 1 scorer. We had a freshman that was our number 5 scorer. We had a girl last year that ran JV for us that was our number 4 scorer. Like it was exciting to watch. And the result of that is the state rankings came out this week, and they ranked our girls 10th. And so you go from nobody thinking about this group to this. And so that girls group, we're trying to kind of like ease them into these kind of things. So we're going to take them to a couple small meets to kind of prep them. So we're going to the Ruston area this weekend for the Cedar Creek meet with the girls. Then the next weekend, we're taking the boys team to Clinton, Mississippi. Parkway has a very heated rivalry with a school in Mississippi, Pearl High School, which is kind of a weird thing. Like, we didn't know these people when we started going to Mississippi, but there have been some really, really great races against each other. And so we try to kind of go over there and race them every year. So we'll do that. We're going to take our girls to a race in Texarkana that I think we should be able to be really competitive at. and then we're going to merge our boys and girls teams together, and we're going to go to Catholic High in Baton Rouge, which is the premier meet in Louisiana before the state meet. It generally has the most ranked schools racing together, all getting after it on the same weekend and stuff. And so we're building toward that one. After that, we've got a month until state, and really the kids kind of want to just settle down and train for the month. And so I'm pretty excited for that idea too, of just buckle down, get some training in, and see what we can do from that. Get a good checkpoint, whether it's us kicking people in the mouth or us getting kicked in the teeth, and build from there for the long haul.
Yeah. I would like to make a slight clarification because I'm sure there's plenty of people who will listen to this and be like, why does this cross country coach not know what place his team came in and is surprised at how well they did? This is not because Coach Faulting is negligent on race day. Unfortunately, what we have learned, and if you ever host a meet, you will probably find that there's not a ton of time for you to pay attention to your own team, unfortunately, on these days. I'm sure you were leaning very heavily on your assistant coaches to help out. And even your assistant coaches, if it was like it when I was there, are insanely busy with parking or crowd control or helping running the meet, timing. I was telling somebody the other day about my first time at the meet where our little timing computer worked for the girls, and then for the boys, it was not working. So I had to handwrite every time down as they came across the line.
Oh
So
my God, we pulled a notebook out of a backpack and
yeah,
just went
yeah.
to
We
town.
just started writing some stuff down. So this is not Coach Felting neglecting his team. This is Coach Felting so busy running this meet and making sure that everything runs smoothly, which is very difficult when you're talking, 1,000 runners across all the different races. So I imagine that is why, and that's kind of the price that it pays to come for it. But that if you're wondering like why does he not know why his team was in second place, it's because he was so busy doing everything else that day that coaching was a little bit further down on his list of priorities than he probably would have liked.
Yeah, I absolutely like hate home meet days, because it's the one day that you don't get to do any kind of coaching and stuff. Like you're running around putting out fires. I like, for instance, 2 years ago, Gabe's senior year, Gabe had finished second in the border dash his freshman, sophomore, junior year. His senior year, a kid from another team falls out on the back loop of our course. Our course has a front loop and a back loop, and it's an out and back. And so I get radioed. I go out there to help this kid who's fallen out. And I miss my own son winning this race in his final ever chance to race there, because I'm helping out this. And the funny part was that kid's coach had no idea it even happened. Like we bring the kid back, we make sure he's good. Later on, I go to check on him with the coach, and the coach is like, what are you talking about?" And I was like, "Man, that's the life of a meet director." Like I went and did that. So I don't know any of my kids' times until I leave the park that day. And so it's just funny. Like I'm just sitting here going like, all right, did they do good? Did they not do good? I went to the team tent after both of the races to talk to the team, and I looked and I saw one of my verses like, "Oh, I didn't even realize, like, I haven't seen you all day today. Like you ran a race and I never even saw you at all." And so, yeah, it's a nightmare, but it's part of the process for like building a program. Like you want to put on a great meet. You want to put on a huge meet. When you and I started that meet, it was about 100 people there. We all parked in like a little grass field and stuff. And now they've added parking lots at this park. We've filled those up. We've, filled up the road. We've done all these things. And so that's one of the trade-offs. But also on the trade-off, I talk about this a lot. Our football team has 6 home games this year. Every home game, they're going to make, $10,000, $15,000. Cross country, if you're lucky enough to host a meet, you get one shot to make as much money as you can to help fund the team and stuff. And so on that day, you got to kind of hope that like your coaching is going to take care of itself, that you've prepared those kids and that they're going to handle their business, and you just go make it work, man. But on the flip side, I make our home meet the second week of the season. So I'm done. And now I can just, take my kids to races, coach, and watch other people suffer through that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we will shift gears here a little bit from the high school team you coach to one of your athletes you coach. So we got somebody about to tackle one of the world majors here.
Right. So this will be her second world major, and her what we at fourth marathon, I believe.
Fourth marathon, yeah.
Fourth marathon, yeah. And so we've had three PRs. Weirdly, every course we get's more challenging than the previous course. We're talking about Alison Ringel Wells, who kind of helped us start this club back in the day. Her and another one of her teammates asked if they could kind of get some coaching going, to do some things out after they had finished their collegiate careers. And yeah, so she ran her first marathon, and it was like basically through like a neighborhood dang near. It was on a sidewalk, a lot of out and backs and stuff, and qualified for Boston right out of the gate. Never having run a
258.
marathon before ever.
Yeah.
And then we get ready to go to Boston, and about 2 months out from Boston, she's like, "Hey, my hip really hurts," and we had to make this huge pivot. And then we get a couple weeks from Boston, and she's like, "I think I want a PR for a marathon, on a course that's famous for something called Heartbreak Hill." And so what does she do? She goes and PRs for a marathon.
Yeah, 247, I believe, at
Yeah,
Boston.
and
So
so and then now she gets accepted into the elite field in some of these marathons if she chooses to race them. She had a baby after Boston. We took a break for about a year and a half, and then came back and trained for the Austin Marathon. The Austin Marathon needs a worse name than Heartbreak Hill for the hill that you run in that marathon. I've never seen any race where you could tell the steepness of the hill from the pace vehicle. And when I watched this pace vehicle almost flip over as it was driving up the hill in Austin, I thought, man, that's impressive there and stuff. And so, but what does she do again? She PRs again.
yeah, 244, I believe she
Yeah,
does. So
and so we just keep moving the needle. The goal is to qualify for the Olympic trials in 2028. And now, finally, after these choices, she gets to run a course that is notoriously fast, and that is the Chicago Marathon. You've run the Chicago Marathon, right?
I have not. No, Brett has run the Chicago
Brett's run the
Marathon, one of
Chicago
our
Marathon,
athletes.
yeah. So Brett
Yeah,
that runs for
Chicago
us.
Marathon holds the men's world record at I believe 2 hours and change, which was set by Kelvin Kipton, who has since passed away, and then also holds the women's record at 2:09, which has since been disgraced because the runner was a busted for doping. But nonetheless, both men and women's world records run on this course, so it is a very fast course. I think multiple American runners have run under 2:10 on this course as well. So, yeah, as far as difficulty goes, probably going to be the I'm not sure about the first one, but I'm assuming with all the out and backs and stuff like that, this one will probably be the easiest course she has run to date. So looking forward to seeing what that looks like for her.
Yeah, and I mean, if you follow her on Strava, you can see that like she's doing some really crazy things right now. I saw a workout the other day where for the last 6 miles she averaged like under 6 minute pace basically, and thought, man, this is this is wild. Like, her marathon PR came from averaging 6:20-ish pace, and so to watch her doing this, it's like, man, this is amazing, but we talked about wanting to bring up this topic because every time we do this marathon, I have zero marathon experience. I've never even physically gone and watched a marathon, let alone run a marathon. And so as we get close to these marathons every time, I kind of turn the experiences over to you in terms of making coaching decisions and stuff. So we're getting to the point where we're about to be 3 weeks out at the end of this week from the Chicago Marathon. And, we talked yesterday, and it's about time for me to hand off the relay baton to you to take over the coaching for the last little bit. And so what are you looking for in that last 3 weeks? What are you thinking about when you're planning for what that should look like? Like, talk us through, because I think some people, scale back too much. I think some
Yeah.
people go too hard. So what is kind of like the sweet spot as you prep for this marathon?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's funny because I've talked to people about Allison occasionally, and I'm like, I help coach her, and they're like, oh, you help, and I'm like, I'm like Faulting does 99.9% of this, and I'm like occasionally giving them some like feedback on long runs, on eating, and then like helping out with the taper, like so. I
Hey
do a
man,
little bit.
Mariano Rivera's in the Hall of Fame, and he only came in the ninth inning and stuff. Like, you can be a famous closer by all means.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great question. So, there's a lot of stuff out there if you go and you look at marathon tapers and things like that. And it really gets tricky, I think, whenever you start getting to somebody like Allison or even someone who's going for kind of like a Boston time or something like that. I think if it's your first marathon or you're, trying to just kind of complete one, and that's not a knock whatsoever. Completing a marathon is a fantastic achievement. But likely there's going to be a little bit of a shift. If it was somebody doing their first marathon, I'm probably going to back them off a lot more than I would somebody like Allison or even myself. And so, the very first marathon I did kind of like a 3 week taper because I was kind of like, oh, I want to make sure I'm fresh. I want to make sure I'm fresh and really cut down on the amount of speed work I was doing and the length of my runs and really went into it and just felt stale is probably the right word. Like my legs just didn't have the pop that I was hoping they were gonna have. It just felt very difficult even the couple of days before, like doing strides, like just getting my legs to pick up. Um, and so I did a lot of research into this going into Louisiana Marathon. Louisiana Marathon, I didn't have a whole lot of time. I had really about 2 months. I had tried to do my first 100 at the end of October, and so I had to recover from that a little bit. So it was really about Thanksgiving before I started training, and I had from then till like the middle of January. So I think it was about an 8 week build. So kind of out of necessity on that one. Louisiana Marathon took place on a Sunday. On the previous Saturday, so about 8 days out, I did a 20-mile long run, and it wasn't really a lot of hard pace or anything. It was kind of 10 out, 10 back. The 10 back, I tried to kind of run a little bit steady and saw a lot of success from that. And the more digging I did, I was starting to see that a lot of people, are kind of going off of like a 7 to 10 day taper, depending on what it is. And so, even if you look at stuff like Ironman, I saw something where, they were hosting, I think like the national, in Kona or whatever, Ironman championships on a Saturday or Sunday, and on like a Monday, somebody went out and did a 70-mile bike ride. Now, biking is a lot different. It's not quite as difficult, but like still like 70 miles on the bike just within the week of doing 112 on the bike. A lot of people are probably like, God, that's a lot. And it is. And this is a professional athlete who has access to recovery. But I really do think that the big thing is to not go too crazy with it. So I would say for most people, I think a 2 week taper is probably the max that I would suggest. And so, barring that, like I've been doing really kind of a 7 to 8 day taper. And I think what I'm about to do and what we'll probably have Allison do is more of a 10-day taper. I've done this 8 day taper the past couple of marathons and had a lot of success with it. But I'm also a little interested to see like, maybe doing the 7 day taper, I'm not running quite as good as I could be. Maybe I'm still a little fatigued from a long run 8 days out than I would be if I did it 10 days out. And so, I just pulled up what I did for Mesa. So Mesa ran, that one was actually a Saturday instead of a Sunday. The week of Mesa, I did 8 miles on Monday, an easy run on Tuesday, like a mile, I think. 4 miles on Wednesday, 3 miles on Thursday, 3 miles on Friday, and then the marathon. And so with me, it's a little different having the running streak. There are some days that like I probably would have taken off that Tuesday instead of just running a mile. For others, that would be something I would definitely recommend. And so that was a 50-mile week. The week before that was that was a 47-mile week. The week before that was 50. I did 16 on that Saturday, including an 8-mile tempo at marathon pace. The week before that was 66, and the week before that was 67. So these are not, huge cut downs I'm doing on my part. I am making sure I'm getting a lot of rest. I'm doing a lot of easy runs when I'm not doing the high mileage. But, 2 weeks before the marathon, I did 24 miles, alternating miles. So I would do a mile at pace and then a mile easy. And I did that Looks like 6:30, 6:35, 6:34, 6:30, 6:29, 6:32, 6:38, 6:39, 6:44, 6:46. So I believe that was 10 miles alternating. And so again, that's, kind of going with about a week taper. I think we're gonna probably, and we'll try this out with Alison, I think, backing that out. So probably a long run the Wednesday or Thursday, the week prior to the marathon, so about 10 days out. Probably something around that 16 miles. I think that's a pretty good, you're getting in about 2 hours of work, or in Allison's case, probably a little bit less than 2 hours of work, but still able to get in a significant amount of mileage at marathon pace. And then probably, if you do that Wednesday, Thursday, you can come back on Saturday or Sunday and still probably get another 12 miles in or something like that, something similar. And then typically on Tuesday, kind of the last workout per se, which is typically 4 or 5 miles at marathon pace with a little warm up, little cool down, so maybe 7 to 8 miles. And then, yeah, something like if it's a Saturday or Sunday marathon, probably, Thursday or Friday, either a very easy day or some off days. I always like running the day before marathon. There is some research that shows kind of like more like just neurons and stuff like that, just like your body firing, making sure you're, oh, I'm like losing my train, like my thumb, your nervous system. There we go. Just making sure everything is kind of connected there with your nervous system, and getting some strides in just to get some turnover. But really and truly, you want to make sure that you're fresh, but not too fresh. I think a 3 week taper is probably too much, and I think a 2 week taper is probably pretty good for most people. I think 10 days is probably really good if you're someone who's going after maybe some of those faster times and is trying to make sure you're holding on to that fitness.
Yeah. So, nervous system. I mean, that's such a minor thing. No wonder you
Yeah,
feel better.
absolutely.
You know, so, you mentioned too, like your mileage and stuff. Like, I know that professional marathoners like Kipchoge and stuff are on 100, 120 mile weeks and things like that. I do believe, and I think we're seeing it in kind of how we train people, that you don't necessarily have to run 100, 120 mile weeks. And
Yeah.
it's highly improbable to do that and have like a normal life and a job and, those kind of things and stuff. And so I think some of y'all that listen to this program, if you're trying to like chase, these huge miles to get these things, you don't have to necessarily do that. We're also of kind of the firm belief, like, I don't have anybody run marathon distance or greater than marathon distance training for marathons. I've always been, brought up in the coaching world that if you're coaching a hurdler, if they can get over, 4 or 5 hurdles, they can get over all 10, And so when it comes to the marathon, I think if you can get 20 to 22 miles in a good way, 26 is going to take care of itself. I've never known you to go run 100 plus miles to prep for the 100 mile races,
Yeah.
and stuff. So just attacking just that idea of, before we wrap up, that people understand, like, look, if you're building fitness the right way and you're getting your body exposed to kind of the longer part of this thing, the last part's going to take care of itself and
Yeah.
stuff. So some of y'all trying to get 30 mile, runs in to prepare for 26 miles. It's not the same as running, 5 miles to train for a mile. Like
Yeah.
that, there is a benefit to that,
Yeah.
but the benefits are not necessarily the same when you get up to, those long race distances.
Yeah, I'll typically, I think most people 2022 is probably pretty good. I'll do some stuff 22 to 24. And that's typically the most that I'm gonna get up to. And I think even 24, when I did the 24, it was 3 hours and 8 minutes. And so that was the 22 was 3 hours and 4 minutes. So those runs are, taking up a good bit of time, and really and truly once you start getting above those 3 hour marks, if you're someone trying to run a 3 hour marathon, or even if you're someone trying to run a 4 hour marathon, that's going to start really introducing you to a lot of injury risk. And that's something I know we talked about whenever I was talking about Leadville training. But the longer you are on your feet, the more that stuff compounds and the greater that your risk of injury is. And really and truly, a lot of times, you're not going to get any more out of these extra 2 miles. Don't set an arbitrary number. And I've been very guilty of doing this. Of, oh, I have to do a 22-mile train. Like if you hit 20 miles and you're feeling good, I just one of our runners today, Brinson texted me. We're training him for a half and then Louisiana Marathon, and did a great tempo this morning. He's like, I felt like uncomfortable, but I could have gone an extra couple of miles, and that is probably the biggest takeaway on marathon training or a lot of these trainings is feel uncomfortable on your tempos, on your intervals, because that's what they're supposed to be about. But leave enough in the tank to where you could complete another interval or two, or you could do another mile or two on your tempo. And typically, if you're trying to go 26, even at the easy pace, that's probably not going to be the case. So yeah, 100%, great call out there.
Yeah, don't leave your fitness in the workout.
Yeah.
Like if you put all of your fitness into the workout to break down your body, then what were we really doing this for? Like leave some fitness for the race. That's when you want it.
Yeah. Well, I signed up for Boston last week with my 5 second of leeway, so probably not going to get that. But I did find out that I qualify for Chicago, so it will not be 2025, but I plan on applying for Chicago 2026. So
Look at
um,
that.
we'll be getting a few of us into some of these bigger races here, and yeah, looking to kind of see how that shakes out. But yeah, I'm sure we'll have another podcast before Allison takes on Chicago here in a couple of weeks, and so we'll update you guys then, and definitely let you know afterwards how that went, and keep track of everything. But I think we got about 2 minutes left on the countdown here before our recording stops, thanks to Zoom's time limit. So, Coach Falting, anything you want to part with?
I just want people to understand as well. Like, people always think like the marathon's this long, slow process and everything. And you brought it up yesterday, and I was looking at today. We had a marathon that ended with a kick to rival, 100-meter sprint, just a couple of days ago and stuff. And so, like, what was the difference in
Point
winning?
zero three, I believe, between first and second.
So
Mhm.
26.19 miles of just regular running to be decided by less than a tenth of a second at the end
Yeah.
and stuff. Look, speed still matters, people.
Oh yeah.
And stuff.
100%.
So no matter the distance, there's something in there for a little burst at the end. So I just thought that was a neat little thing to see after all this time, is people just really turn it into like freaking field day, just chasing each other, getting after it.
Absolutely. Well, Coach Falting, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Wisdom of Coaches podcast hosted by the Legacy Track Club. Be sure to check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and at legacytrackclub.com. We'll catch you guys next time.
Peace.